Hello there. Welcome to my second episode of the Midnight in the Valley late night radio podcast. Wanted to just welcome you and talk a little bit about another topic. I'm going to try to do this 5 nights a week, like I said, Monday through Friday. So tonight will be the last one before I start back up on Monday. If you're joining me, let me know. You can type in chat in the side note here. And yeah, so we'll just jump right on in. So tonight's topic is it's about unity, and I want to play you a couple of bars of something I think for most Gen Xers we're very familiar with. Let me see here, see if this sounds familiar to you. So tonight's topic is on the issue of unity. Uh, Basically, what it means to be connected in a very disjointed world. Let me deal with a little bit of the camera here. So I want to talk about. Sorry, my chair is a little bit weird here. Okay, hold on. There we go. So I want to talk about 1985. That song that I just played, a couple of bars there. That was from "We Are the World." It was written by Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie, produced by Quincy Jones, and that came out in March of 1985. And it was in response to the uh, it was in response to the famine in Ethiopia that was occurring, that had basically been about through 83 through 85, that was becoming very I mean, on a lot of people's radar. In England, it was first brought to the attention of politics and the media by Bob Geldof. Bob Geldof, for us Gen Xers, you know who he is. He was the lead singer of a band called Boomtown Rats, and they had a popular song called "I Don't Like Mondays." And then Bob Geldof also played Pink in the live action movie version of the Pink Floyd album The Wall. So Bob Geldof has been steeped in the music industry. Well, this the famine in Ethiopia in 83 to 85 got on everybody's radar. And so what he had done is he had worked with a couple of other producers, and they created a charity single that they were going to release in December of 84. And that was called, it was called Do They Know It's Christmas? And it was a lot of the popular British musicians of the time, uh, George Michael and Wham, a lot of other bands from the British pop invasion of the 70s and 80s were uh, the singers that they brought in to do this song. And it was released December of 84, and they called it Band Aid. So there was a once this came out and it became a huge hit over the Christmas era, and you still will hear it every year. You'll hear it on local radios called "Do They Know It's Christmas Time?" Uh, they wanted to do an American equivalent, and so that's when Quincy Jones, Lionel Richie, and Michael Jackson got together, and then they wrote this song called "We Are the World." And they got a lot of American artists on this side of the pond to come into a recording session after it was written to record it. So it was like Dionne Warwick, um, Kenny Rogers, a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds. Cyndi Lauper, Huey Lewis, Hall and Oates, uh, Bob Dylan, and got many more. Even Willie Nelson came out with a song, and that came out in March of '84. That became a huge hit itself. Then it was decided that Bob Geldof was like, okay, how can we ramp this up? How can we how can we get a worldwide audience and get this on the politicians' radar? This issue of the famine in Ethiopia, and how can we come together as a world? Well, one of the common things that draws people together are the arts, music. Music crosses all socioeconomic and cultural lines. I mean, I listen to music from every culture. If it's good and it piques my interest, I'll listen to it. It doesn't matter where it comes from. I have an app on my radio that allows me to hear global satellite radio stations from all over the world. Literally, the app is a picture of the world. You can turn. There's all these little green dots, and everywhere you see a green dot is a radio station you can lock into and hear local broadcasts of whatever that radio station is playing. I spent a lot of my time in the Celtic bloc, so Irish, Ireland, Scotland, England, anything of a Celtic. That's kind of my real forte in terms of what I gravitate towards. So anyway, so this Bob Geldof had come up with this. Well, why don't we do a global concert on? I think it was two or three different continents, three different locations, I believe, that would have artists from each continent on the stage. We'll do a globally televised world concert, and it was called Live Aid. And so you had one in England, I believe at Wembley. You had at JFK Stadium in the United States. You had a couple of other locations, and it was going to be televised all over the world. And it was to raise awareness and raise money for the famine in Ethiopia. And I remember, so that was '85. So summer of '85, July 5th, I believe it was. Yeah, July of '85. I was living in San Diego at the time, so I was not. I was 11. Wasn't quite. Let's see. Yeah, yeah. I wasn't quite 12 yet, and I just remember that summer we had in the apartment complex we lived in. There was a pool that I used to swim in a lot, and it was playing all day up in our apartment. And I could hear it playing up in the apartment. Then I'd go in and check the bands and see what we're playing, and it was a big worldwide event. I had the shirt. In fact, I got a reprint of the "We Are the World, USA for Africa" shirt that I still wear to this day, and it's a good conversation starter. So for that brief moment in time, the world was unified on a positive cause across all boundaries. And in my lifetime, I got to share in a global event that to this day is still considered one of the largest concerts, global events that had ever happened of that nature. It was a time when I saw real unity between people of all different backgrounds. And the nature of that song, "We Are the World, We Are the Children," it literally talks about the idea that we're all connected. This is a ball floating, a cold rock floating in the cosmos. It's a small pebble compared to this huge galaxy that so far we haven't seen any other proof of life anywhere else. Now, is there life? Maybe. I don't know. We can have conjecture all day long, but it's still conjecture. We don't know 100%. So, as far as I'm concerned, there is no other life. This is it. From one corner of our globe to another corner, this is all we got. And there's so much diversity. But right now, if you look at society, oh, well, I want to talk a little bit more about, before I jump into that, I want to talk a little bit more about Live Aid. At this concert, one of my favorite bands is Queen. And they to this day are considered the band that stole the show. They had a 20-minute set. If you saw the movie Bohemian Rhapsody, the movie ends with the performance at Live Aid. Uh, just they nailed it, and to this day they are considered. It was their global comeback. It brought their albums back to the top of the charts across the world. Um, so it was something that brought us together. At that moment in time, we were a global tribe, a global collective comprised of all these different types of people, but we were a tribe, technically. So you have to ask yourself, what created that? What creates unity? In that instance, it was compassion, empathy, the ability to see other people in need, have your heart opened to that need, look for other people that have the same awareness you have, bond, bind together to help somebody else in need. And by doing that, you're actually increasing your tribe. You create, I'm a tribe of one. I see a need that needs to be met. I look over, see if somebody else has the same uh, feeling I do, or see what I see. I'm like, hey, well, you want to help this person? All right. We bond together. Now we're a tribe of two. We go and help that person, lift them up, encourage them, help meet their needs. Now, once they've been met, then we build a friendship. Now we're a tribe of three. And it grows and it grows and it grows. So the idea is, why do people bond together? There's a lot of different reasons we bond together. If you think of that, there's only humans on this ball. It means it's all we got. There's no one else out in the universe so far that's come to meet us and come to talk with us and open themselves up. No other tribe yet. So we bond together because, well, it's a cold universe out there. A lot of dangers, a lot of fiery stars and asteroids that can hit us at any moment, that could cause us our decline. So we have to figure out how to make things work. It's about safety. Tribes are basically formed out of safety, safety for ourselves or safety for others. You look at it's the if you look at how humans are created, no human is born outside of the birth through another human. And it takes a minimum of two people, the first tribe, to create a third. I can get into the whole transgender thing and all that other stuff. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about base logic. Logic is you need one person and another person, a man and a woman, to bond together in one form or another to create a third. That's how our species is structured. We don't have asexual reproduction. That ever evolves, that's a whole other story, but I'm dealing in the present and dealing right now. So, with that, what happens is we have the first unit of a tribe of safety is the family. The two people together first. That's the first form of safety. Two people bonding together because they realize it's not good for a person to be alone because you need resources, you need relationship, you need to rely. We can't produce singularly what we need in our lives to survive without going to another source. That's just how we're created. If that was the case, we could produce all of our own needs, then we wouldn't need anybody, and everybody would have their own planet that they could man and wouldn't be an issue. So Are we still there? Okay. Yeah, just checking on. So with that, what you have is you have a sort of beginnings of a tribe. Now, if you look in the animal kingdom itself, you see wolves run in packs, a herd of cattle, a murder of crows, all these different names for groups of animals in the animal kingdom that bond together and they move as in a pack of some sort, a pride of lions. And the reason they bond together, they create this community, is for safety, to make sure that as far as their group is concerned, they can survive the unknowns of the world beyond that group. So, however, they determine the terms of which their group operates, if you get a part of their group and you're accepted into their group, you then become a contributing member. They'll protect you, in turn, you protect them. This goes back to the origins of nature in general. You look at cavemen, cavemen were tribalistic. Then you go later on in history when you see uh, indigenous peoples from the different cultures as people migrated, through Asia. You had, the Mongols. You had Eskimos going up through the northern part of the world. Then you had settling into the Americas. You had, the Native Americans, which at that time you would have different tribes of different types of Native Americans, even within that. And yes, even though they were technically the same on the continent, they were different. They were, you know, different Indian tribes in the Americas fought each other. They weren't all just buddy buddy uh, because they were, labeled these America, natives of the Americas. They had different tribes within there, and some of them were peaceful tribes, other were warring tribes. But it was all centered on the idea of safety. In present day, we have a lot of different things. We have a lot of different types of tribes. We have people that classify themselves by their politics. Are you right leaning? Are you left leaning? Are you sports? Sports is a big one. I'm a Raiders fan. I'm a 49ers fan. I'm a Dodgers fan. I'm uh, a Giants fan. I like the New York Mets. I like the Orioles. And if you like one team, well, you can't like this other team because they're the enemy. This is actually a huge thing in England in with what they call British soccer hooligans. People that would riot if they saw the members or people who promoted a different football/soccer team in England. They would have British soccer riots, and they call them like the soccer hooligans. People are fanatical about their membership and leadership to their tribe. You have, again, like politics, and let's go for the big one, religion. I'm There's a joke that Emo Phillips used to say, and I used to love this joke. Bear with me, I'll do a condensed version of it, but it's pretty funny. One day I'm walking down like the Golden Gate Bridge, and I look over and there's a man who's about to looks like he's about to commit suicide and jump off a bridge. And his back is turned to me and I can't see his face. He turns around and he's got this really misshapen face. It's long, like he's distorted. And it's like he's got some sort of facial deformity. And I look at him and I go, why the long face? And he goes, for my whole life, people have called me names like Horse's Head or Flicka. And I said, don't worry about it, Ed, you'll be fine. And as we're talking, I said, so what are you doing? He goes, well, I just can't live life anymore. And I go, Do you believe in God? Are you religious?" And he goes, "Yes." And I'm like, "Oh, good, thank God, because do you think millions of years ago all those cells would have had the random sense of humor to make you look like that? No, there is definitely a God, and he made you look like that. But I don't want to get you uh, freaked out." So he goes, "So what religion are you? Are you Christian or Jewish?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm Christian." "Oh, really? Me too." "Are you Baptist or Lutheran?" He goes, "Oh, I'm Baptist." I go, "Oh, really? Me too." "Are you Northern Baptist or Southern Baptist?" He goes, "I'm Northern Baptist." I go, "Really? Me too." "Are you Northern Conservative Baptist or Northern Fundamentalist Baptist?" He says, "Northern Conservative Baptist." I said, "Oh, really? Me too." "Are you Northern Conservative Fundamentalist Baptist Consulate of 1812 or Northern Conservative Fundamentalist Baptist Consulate of 1814? I said, "Northern Conservative Fundamentalist Baptist Consulate of 1814. I said, "Oh, really? Me too." "Are you Northern Conservative Fundamentalist Baptist Consulate of 1814 Western Region or Northern Conservative Fundamentalist Baptist Consulate of 1814 Eastern Region?" He said, "Northern Conservative Fundamentalist Baptist Consulate of 1814 Western Region." And I said, "Die, heretic!" And I pushed him over. We can't have that. All that to be said, people find all these different things to separate themselves, whether it's music, the type of music you like the rappers, the heavy metal headbangers. Back in my day, and if you were a Gen Xer like me, one of the biggest crossovers at the time was you had the rap crowd and then you had the heavy metal crowd, and the two definitely stayed apart. But then you had two instances where there was crossover that was a game changer, and it really changed music in general. The first that I remember, it was Run DMC rap, because I liked rap, but I also liked heavy metal, but I never mixed the two. Run DMC did a cover of Walk This Way by Aerosmith, and they got Aerosmith to be a part of it. So they did a rap version of Walk This Way, combined it. And it was like, that's interesting. That's new. And then later on, you had the thrash metal band, speed metal band, Anthrax hook up with Public Enemy and start doing songs together. And they even toured together. So normally you had these African American community, you had all the types of people that were involved in that community hanging out with headbangers on the other end, and they're both doing these shows, and they're in mosh pits together. And it was like so foreign. It was groups of people willing to see past their differences and communally come together for a musical cause. They were willing to separate outside of their tribe, put their fears down, and you know basically start to commune with a larger community. You also have issues of, like I said, we have racial divides in our society in modern day. We have your creed, even your military service, or if your job, if you're a police officer, there's this attempt right now to put police officers in one group or this or that. There's all these ways that people find their tribe. And I've never really been a tribal person. I've tried to fit into groups, but it's just not me. I don't fit in. I have so many varied interests of all different backgrounds, and I thank my dad for that. 'Cause my dad's music was so varied. I was exposed to so many different types of arts and creative things from different sources that it just really it exposed me to a huge world at a very young age. I mean, at fifth and sixth grade, I'm reading Shakespeare and loving it. I get it. And what kids are reading Shakespeare at that age and really grasping it and wanting to read it? That was just my brain. So I had friends in all these different groups, and I always felt like a fish out of water if I stayed too long in one group, because at some point I'd see somebody in another group. I'm like, oh, I want to go be a part of that. And if I was part of a tribe and they'd feel threatened by that, well, we don't hang out with those types. Well, I'm going to go hang out with them. Then I'd get blasted by the group that I was just with for being a traitor or, you know, just not holding true my loyalty. And I'm like, you know what? There's a bigger world out there. And that really kicked off for me in high school. I had a certain set of friends in seventh and eighth grade and whatnot. And I think also being a child of divorce, I moved around a lot. So I had to make friends with a lot of different people in a lot of different areas. So let's talk about kind of the negatives now. Let's jump into the negatives of tribalism. What are some negatives? Well, it's the idea of the positive of tribalism is protection, safety, making sure that the people under your charge are taken care of. The negatives of tribalism is fear, fear of destruction, fear of loss of control. And that fear then fuels the ability for you to do things with a I'm going to for lack of a better term, I'm going to hit them before they hit me mentality. And we saw that in our society. It's been a slow process. We've seen it pop up in little bits throughout the decades, starting realistically in the United States, starting to right after World War II, when you had the baby boom coming outside of World War II. You had to, you saw the whole Red Scare thing start to happen in the 40s, 50s, the communist thing, the fear seeping in. That's what the movie Oppenheimer really started to highlight. You see the paranoia starts to set in and the fear that goes with it, and people reacting out of fear to protect themselves and protect others. And sometimes the fears were founded, and sometimes they were unfounded. So what you have is you have people reacting out of fear, and it fear and mistrust. In the 60s, it was never trust anybody over 30. A lot of the baby boomers were part of the hippie generation. Uh, Being part of the in crowd, that was the thing. Never trust anyone over 30. Well, at some point, the baby boomers grew up and they gained control of the national narrative. They became our teachers, our politicians, our college instructors. They became the ruling party. Then their attitude was don't trust anybody under 30 and don't trust anybody but us. Because when you get to the top and you've achieved your upper echelon of protection, you don't want to lose it. So when did this really ramp up in the United States? When was this the negative side of tribalism really start to kick in? We started to see it in the election process in the last 20, 30 years. The 1988 election, basically when media really started to play even a bigger game. The 2000 election, that was basically had the courts involved, and you saw this right leaning and left leaning uh, real narratives start to pop up in terms of media. Um, how be media started to be tailored towards your proclivities, whether it was I'm right leaning, so I'm going to watch this channel. I'm left leaning, so I'm going to watch this channel to get my news. News became a product that was fashioned for a consumer. But when did it really kick into overdrive? September 11th, 2001. 2001. We had two planes go into the Twin Towers. We had another plane go into uh, the Pentagon. We had another plane that was downed that landed in a field. I think that was Flight 93, Pennsylvania, I want to say. And I believe that they stopped another plane before it was going to take off. Um, what you saw was positives and negatives of tribalism happening simultaneously. The negative side of tribalism, 19 men basically hired, fanaticized, however you want to say it, were engaged in commandeering these planes for suicide missions on behalf of a tribe of people in another country on the other side of the world who were threatened by our tribe, the United States, and what we represent. These people in this other tribe are a little bit more, let's say, consolidated. There's not a lot of diversity amongst that tribe in terms of their individual members. They're all very much similar in lockstep attitude about the world, their religion, their belief systems. There's not a lot of diversity that's happening there. And so in the United States, though, the United States, even though we were formed out of England, and that's predominantly Anglo-Saxon, Caucasian, uh, Protestant, you know, in its we were formed out of England, with the settlers and whatnot. Because we had, and I'm not going to get into the whole slave trade thing and all the evils of that, but I will bring up because we brought slaves with us, because we brought uh, other people who would come to this world, and yes, we were displacing natives who lived here who were migratory themselves. America, for all intents and purposes, has always been a melting pot. There's been a majority controlled by one type of human, Caucasian, Anglo-Saxon, whatever you want to call it. I don't use the word white because there's no such thing as white, but that's a whole other, I'll get into that a little bit. At the end of the day, we've always been a melting pot. Give us your tired, you're poor, I can't quote it verbatim, but the idea is that my grandparents were immigrants. My my grandfather was an immigrant from Portugal. My great grandfather was also an immigrant from Portugal, and they came through Rhode Island. Um, I have, doing the genealogy, I find that I have family from Germany, Russia, England, Ireland, Scotland, Portugal. I believe there's some Russian Jew in there also. And so America's always been this melting pot of ideologies trying to coexist. And you do have within that, you do have tribalism that rears its ugly head. So when the Twin Towers went down, what that was a statement by one tribe threatened by the tenets and the ideals of another tribe. And they wanted to destroy it. They didn't care because it wasn't about the skin color. It wasn't about the religion. It was about the ideology of inclusiveness. Because in those towers, in those airplanes, in the Pentagon, were people of all different walks of life, of all different tribes who were killed. Some of them were from, the tribes that were the perpetrators. So it wasn't about any one tribe. It was the concept of difference from our specific tribe, and we're going to destroy anything that is representative of that. So hold on one second. Um, so anyway, so with that, what you see is the downside of tribalism was the fear of attacking and destroying that which you find different in the hopes it doesn't destroy you. It's a kill or be killed attitude. Now, what was interesting was in right after 9/11 happened, I saw something in the United States that was amazing. I saw a national pride and I saw the world had come together again. Apart from certain areas, there were certain areas that were very happy for what happened to the United States. That was being televised and whatnot. But within our borders and outside of our borders, there was this real unity happening. People felt sorry for us, kind of, and wanted to see how they could help. So everybody pitched in for that window. Now, the farther we got out away from that attitude, then a whole new set of fears came in, a whole new set of paranoia about the unknown, a paranoia about differences. Then we had, in the idea of protecting everybody, you had issues of a forever change to how we move throughout the United States in terms of using air transport with all the TSA, all the different checkpoints that you had to go through in order for you to travel, um, and you know the the pat downs and whatnot. Then later on, again, I will go into COVID. COVID dealt with that issue too of are you vaccinated or unvaccinated? Do you got to do this? You start to see tribalism rear its ugly head, even worse than it's ever have, but within our own borders and now throughout the world. Now we have a world that is honestly, we have a world that's completely disconnected. We have a world that is just filled with tribes and fear of the unknown, fear of other people. And I don't know when it's going to go away globally, and I don't know if it will. All I do know is those a part of as who I am, I like bridging the gap. That's just my personality. I love hanging out around people who are completely different than me. I was never one who fit into the church and that group. I am a Christian. I love God with all my heart. But a lot of times I go to a church and I just don't fit into the system there because I wasn't raised in the church. I'm a little bit more gritty. I always joked, like I said on my last podcast, that I'm kind of the Quint version of a Christian, Quint from Jaws. So you got to ask yourself, with the all the different tribes we have and the polarization we have, why do we have this polarization? Why do we have uh, this whole setup where people are just fearful of each other in one form or another? In order to answer the question, you got to ask, well, who's behind it? Who benefits from polarization and tribalism? Who benefits from this breakdown of communication. It's like in The Wizard of Oz. Who's the who's the man behind the curtain pulling the strings? Usually, it's the individual or group that wants power or has power or is losing power. It's power, whether it's an individual or a group, a tribe that wants control. If you look at our society right now, everybody is being classified by type. When you go for a job application, I've had to fill a lot of those out. They ask you your race, your gender, your this, your that. Are you a military veteran? Do you have medical issues? The government itself is trying to classify you, to put you into a box. Why? For control. It's easy to control what you can classify. We know in history, other governments who, at any drop of a hat, all of a sudden would justify this type of person, this group of person is a threat to our society. So we've classified them as being a threat. We need to round them up. I'm not going to go into it, but you know where I'm going with this. Those who are in control of a narrative benefit from polarization. It's the old adage of separate, or what is it, divide and conquer. If I have this group over here separated, then I have a group over here that I've separated, and I'm the go-between between both of them. I can go to this group over here, I can tell them one thing, and then sow seeds of mistrust. Now, here's what I'm telling you in confidence. Trust me, this person over here is really bad. Stay away from them. Then that person will trust you, stay away, view the other person as a threat. Then you go to the other person, hey, go away. Or you know what? See that group over there? They're dangerous. Trust me. Only listen to me. Then that person, in their naivete, says, yeah, you're a trusting person. Okay, I got you. Yeah, all right, that's fine. I won't. And then these two people on the end would start to look at each other suspiciously as enemies while trusting the person in the middle, the silver-tongued devil. This is happening in every facet of society right now. Every facet, top down. Education, politics, your churches, your families. You're seeing a breakdown of society through the destruction of community. And the tool is tribalism, fear. The purpose of this podcast here is, yes, I'm Gen X, because that's who I'm talking to. But I desire to have people involved in this channel who are not like me, who are the opposite of me. Now, will that challenge me to see the world differently? Yes. I want to grow. I don't want to be in my little tribal bubble. Will it change me? Possibly. If I hold strong to my convictions, I can filter out what I want to be changed by and what I think, it's not really right for me, but I do thank you for sharing your information, because I think it's good to have outside influences and not be afraid. Some people are like, don't even go near it, stay away. And that's just because of where they're at in their life. They don't want to even risk any sort of threat to their safety, their bubble. And I find that in all walks of life. So, the control of authority. If we look at governments, we look at authority figures in general. There's an old book, 3,000 years old, on warfare, Chinese book on warfare, the Art of War by Sun Tzu, military strategist. And one of the concepts in the book is the way for a kingdom or a government to stay in control is to sow discord amongst the population it rules over, get them fighting amongst themselves. Why? Because if they're fighting amongst themselves, they will never be a unified front to gang up together to overthrow you. So you're controlling the narrative by keeping discord amongst the masses, then selling the cure. Well, hey, I've got a solution to help you. And then what you do is you put a little seed of help, but then you sow in more discord behind it. And it's a lather, rinse, repeat method for control. I One of my favorite movies, if you're a Gen Xer like me, and my daughter loves the songs and whatnot, is Flash Gordon, 1980, Sam Jones, Melody Anderson, uh, Topol, and then oh geez, what's his name who played Ming? Max von Sydow, and the soundtrack by Queen. Flash. Anyway, there's this great line in there when Flash is flying through the nebula with the daughter of Ming the Merciless, who's the villain in the movie, and her name is Aura. And she starts to talk about all the kingdoms that Ming rules. This is taken right out of The Art of War by Sun Tzu. She goes, all of these kingdoms that he rules, they fight amongst themselves. So they can never team up against Ming. And he remains and he keeps in control the whole time. It's a rather brilliant strategy. Next time you watch that film, in fact, I included a link in my in the description here. I think it's the last link. Cut to the 50-second mark. You'll see it in that scene. I also wanted to talk a little bit about two other things. There is a clip by Charlie Chaplin from the movie The Greatest Dictator, and it's considered a classic. And it was a parody of Hitler and the fascism of World War II. Somebody really edited a clip, a beautiful clip, to a song by Fordlandia. And I've included that link in the description also that I want you to look at. I think that you'll like what it has to say because you'll see about understanding where unity comes from. And the technology around us has been a blessing, but it's also been a curse because how many times have you been on your phone? How many times have you been out with a friend? And I'm guilty of this. How many times have you been out with a friend and you keep looking at your phone while they're talking to you? You're not really engaged in the moment. So you keep going back to your phone. That clip subtly deals with that, the idea of technology bringing us closer but separating us farther apart than ever. And one of the last clips in there is another person that I greatly admire, Carl Sagan. He did a documentary before his passing many years ago. And there's this clip, it's called The Pale Blue Dot, which talks about our world and the connections we have. If you can, I highly suggest that you scroll through those links and click on each one of them. And you'll see that, again, with my podcast, with what I'm doing here each night, as I grow this channel, hopefully, I can bring a sense of unity to what we're doing and what we're dealing with. Some people don't like unity, and that's fine. Other people do. I'm talking to the people who want unity, who want to have a place to talk. One of my other favorite bands is Devo. Many years ago, Mark Mothersbaugh, the lead singer, was asked by an interviewer who was trying to be smart and trying to do a gotcha question. She goes, "Well, who's your demographic? Who do you like? I mean, who do you make your music for?" And he goes, "We make our music for the people that like us." Well, she goes, "Oh, no, I understand that, but who?" And she goes, "Well," he goes, "No." She goes, "Oh yeah, who? Old people, young people? This?" And she was trying to find a demographic, and he's like, "No, you don't get it. We make our music for those who like us. So if you're old and you like us, then we're your demographic. If you're young and you like us, we're your demographic. If you're black, you're white, you're whatever classification you are, if you like us, you're our demographic. We make music for people that like us. That's our demographic." It's a unity thing. Music, pop culture, it's what brings us all together in one form or another. And that's one of the greatest gifts that I think God has given man is the ability to create the arts. I've been a career artist. Have I made a lot of money? No. Anybody looked at my social security statements? You'll see it. Didn't make a lot of money. People are like, you should be a millionaire. I go, it's not about that. I mean, it'd be nice. Some people are lucky to have gone into that that road and got on that path and monetized themselves very well. Others haven't. It sucks. I'm okay with it though. But guess what? I have made some amazing art and I've touched a lot of people's lives. And I'm okay with that because I get to talk with people. I get to engage. So that was kind of well, okay, you know what? I'm going to kind of close up here because I want to get one other aspect here, and that is how do we overcome as I time I've got a few more minutes here. How do we overcome the negative side of tribalism? It really comes down to choice. Only you can make that choice whether you want to step out of your comfort zone to grow, to see the world in a better place. You might be at a place where you don't want to see the world a better place. You're happy with the way it is and you've built out this little niche for yourself and you're cool with that because nothing is demanded of you, nothing is required of you to be a contributor. You've focused that this is what I want for my life and I'm good. That's fine. Then this message isn't for you. But if you're like me, you want to see the world grow a little more, become a little more compassionate, filled with empathy, love for your neighbor. Even if you don't like your neighbor, you got to find your way to love your neighbor. There's a lot of people going through life who don't love their neighbors. It is what it is, and that's their choice. You've got to learn to love them in return. Doesn't mean you have to let them walk all over you, but you can love them even with the hardened hearts. That's what you do. But how do we change it? You have to decide what you want for the world. What do you want to see for yourself? What do you want your world to look like beyond you? I've got a kid. Some point, I'm not going to be on this earth. While I'm here, I'm trying to make the best impact I can. Am I perfect? No way. I'm not perfect. I have failed more times than I care, but I don't give up. I might run away for a time, recoup, and then say, what was I doing? Then jump back in because we all make decisions that we regret and we all have to work on them. Nothing is final. And, we all have to work and change. But I have a desire for my child that once I leave this earth, that my child grows in empathy and love for the world around them, doesn't have a me first attitude, not what I can get out of the world and what the world can give me, but what can I give back? And it ties into last night's message about love. What is love? Love is sacrifice. True love. If you really love somebody, your level of love is measured by your amount of sacrifice. A lot of times people can't do that. Why can't they? Because well, there's a lot of emotional reasons. There's this or that, but your love is determined by how much you sacrifice and not expect in return. Because love is one direction. It's sacrifice. Now, relationship does not necessarily mean love. Relationship is reciprocal. Relationship has conditions. Relationship has boundaries. Love just gives, doesn't expect in return. 1 Corinthians 10:13 uh, is the love chapter, and I believe that's we'll go into that. I'm not going to go into here. You can look at it on your own. But the idea of love is patient, love is kind. That's how we build unity, by loving your neighbor as yourself. Even the ones you don't really like, you got to find a way to love them. Doesn't mean you let them walk all over you, but you have to step outside of yourself. And yeah, so listen, have a good night. Go into the world in peace. Try to find ways to love your neighbors. Be a light in the darkness. When it's midnight in the valley and you're in the valley, shine your flashlight. Because if you look out there, somebody's shining their flashlight too, and they're trying to find another person to bond with, to walk on the journey together, get through these valleys. All right, guys, have a good night. Thank you for your time, and I'll catch you Monday.